All right. So, in three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and I'm joined this week by my co host, Mr. Tyler Ball.
What's happening, good people?
Hope everything's going good with you, Tyler.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Things looking good in the Gate City, Greensboro,
Uh,
North Carolina.
how was your homecoming, and how did the game turn out?
Well, homecoming went well as usual. It is called the greatest homecoming on earth, except no substitutes, including that little detailed shade by that function down in Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, but yes, we do have the greatest homecoming on earth, and it lived up to its billing. As a matter of fact, the North Carolina A&T Aggies uh, actually tied a school record with its eighth consecutive victory to start the season. The Aggies are currently ranked in both the Stats LLC media poll as the number seven ranked team in the nation, and in the FCS coaches poll as the number six team in the nation. And those are the highest rankings the school has achieved since the 1993 season. So it's very good times in Aggie land, and also they're the top HBCU ranked football team. So exciting times here.
All right. So, if you guys are in Greensboro, got a few more weekends to go. Go check out the Aggies, support them, and they'll be in the Celebration Bowl, right? If
If
they
they
went
win,
out, right?
yes, if we can pull out, we win two out of our last three games, we will essentially clinch our berth in the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, which will be televised on ABC. That is that game pits the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference champion, or the SWAC, versus the champion of the Mideastern Athletic Conference, or the MEAC, which are the two HBCU Division One institutions. Um, and also the winner actually gets the mythical Black College National Championship. Um, it's generally determined uh, by polls by the SBN network, which is the Sheridan Broadcasting Network, which is the essentially the Black media poll, and that keeps in track. And it also include the poll actually includes Division two institutions as well, but um, but the winner of the Celebration Bowl is generally considered the best HBCU team.
All right. Well, thank you for the update on A&T, and hopefully those guys can continue to have such a great season and get everything that they've worked hard for this year. Just want to remind everybody that Know the Score is brought to you by CSPN. You can find us on www.cspn.us. You can follow the show on Twitter at KTSPod. We can also be found on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and SoundCloud. And we're also available to be subscribed to on any app for iPhone or Android that plays podcasts. So, Tyler, we're going to get into it. The boys of summer are now into the fall classic as the Dodgers and the Houston Astros, coming off that Game 7 victory over the Yankees, are now in the World Series. We had Game 1 on Tuesday night. It's 103 degrees in LA in October. Global warming is real, y'all. As we had Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers bullpen just have a miraculous outing. They shut down the Houston lineup. Dodgers won 3-1. 2 hours and 28-minute baseball game. You would have thought Greg Maddux was back on the mound. How crisply this game was played. It was really a cool sight to see. All the Dodger people. They've been waiting on this for probably about 4 seasons now in a row for their team to make it to the World Series, and those people were really excited. All the blue towels and Magic Johnson behind the plate and everything. So it's just a really good scene out in LA for game one. and they did not disappoint the home folks. The Dodgers played really well, got the lead early, and they made it a six-inning game basically as Kershaw went five strong, and then the Dodgers went to their bullpen, and like they've been doing for most of the postseason, they shut Houston down. So Tyler, what were some takeaways that you had from Game One of the World Series?
Game one, essentially, Jason Taylor, uh, lead hits the first pitch of the World Series essentially out of the stadium. Uh, it was exciting. Uh, beginning with that first pitch, and you know, eventually, uh, eventually the guy, you know, I think that once the game got underway, I don't think the weather played as big of a role as people um, as people would think of it to be because the guys have been playing all summer long and they've played in hot weather. It was just unusual for that time of year, but I think that those guys are used to it, um, and I think that it was just a matter of just getting to the game and playing the game kind of takes that takes the heat and the elements off your mind. Um, but the fact that Taylor got off to a hot start, and Kershaw maybe exercised some demons that he's had with, uh, looking every bit of dominant. His slider was working, his curve was working, which set up his fastball, and he was able to put away. Um, he was able to put away the bats for the Dodgers. I mean, for the Astros, and he essentially shut down the middle of the lineup, which is always key. Um, and the Dodger bullpen, of course, did what they had to do, and eventually we move on to game two. That they ran up their string of scoreless innings to 28, which was overly impressive, and that's actually been the story behind the story of the Dodgers is that their bullpen was just shockingly successful because everybody talks about the Dodger staff, which has essentially three aces on it. Uh, but no, I mean the Dodgers also have arguably the best closer in baseball in in Kenley
Kelly
Jansen
Jansen.
and
Yeah.
Kenley Jansen. So things went according to plan. And actually, when you look into game two, they were kind of going to plan as well until um, the Dodger bullpen happened. So,
Right.
so as you know, you could talk about game two and how things changed when
All right.
Dodgers started giving up runs.
Game two, Rich Hill's cruising right along. He's got himself a lead. It's 3-0 actually. He's just, rolling, doing his thing. He pitches four strong innings. Dave Roberts goes to the bullpen. He stretches his bullpen out, and everything, like you said, Tyler, is looking good until Brandon Morrow comes in, gives up a ground rule double that just nipped off the edge of Yasiel Puig's glove. He was highly upset. I mean, it just barely didn't get in there. But anyway, um, that brings in Kenley Jansen as Dave Roberts is like, okay, danger time. So let me go to my closer. Don't mess around. And the Astros got to him, and they got to him twice. They got to him in the eighth. They got to him in the ninth. They were down 3-1 going into the eighth. So they got one in the eighth, and then they hit a home run off of him in the ninth. And Bellinger sent one for a ride, but not quite far enough. And so we go into extra innings. And this was probably one of the best extra inning baseball games you've ever seen. Altuve and Correa lead off the next inning, back to back homers, just just power. And the thing about the Heat in LA is it made the ball rocket up out of Chavez Ravine. Dodger Stadium is notoriously known as Big Ball Park, pitcher's ballpark forever. And if you get home runs there, you've earned them. Well, with that 100-degree heat and all that in the air, that baseball was flying. And the one Correa touched, man, that thing really got up out of there. So back to the Dodgers in the 10th, and they get two more in the 10th to get a homer, and then they push a guy across, and so the game continues. And in the next inning, we get some more homers from the Astros. They finally extend the lead. They get a two-run lead, so we think everything is going to go well for the next inning, and then the Dodgers again hit another homer to close the game within one. They send the Yasiel Puig to the plate to tie it up, and he wasn't able to do it. Whereas in the inning before, in two innings before rather, he did come up and get a homer to get the Dodgers within one. So the Astros, even though their bullpen has been leaking oil the past couple of games that they've had an opportunity to close the game out, they found a way and they got it done last night. And so the Houston Astros won their first ever World Series game in extra innings, where the game one was a 2 hour and 28 minute just gem of a baseball game. This was a 4.5 hour epic. And a lot of people probably, who aren't really into baseball, if they caught it late in the game, probably was like, man, I don't know why I haven't been more into baseball, because it was, great pitching, home runs, wackiness. We had a pickoff play at second base actually hit an umpire in the thigh, which probably, you know, could have actually put the winning run in on third for the Dodgers in the ninth inning, but Houston got out of that inning, and that's how we got into extras. So, Tyler, just your thoughts on just the craziness of game two, and Kenley Jansen finally showed that he was mortal.
Um, this is one of those things. I'm gonna go back to one of original, your original thoughts when you talk about baseball and playoff baseball. Is that you need to pay attention, after the sixth inning, because managerial decisions happen when pitchers begin to wear down. And that was the case in game two. Um, I just think that uh, when you when you get an opportunity, going deep into the counts, particularly in the bullpens, the deeper you go into the counts, the better off you have chances of getting mistake pitches. And of course, in both cases, you have mistake pitches, and of course, the lineups were deadly enough to where you can turn up on them, and when you add the fact that you know you got a bit of thin air and you add the heat, we got balls flying out, and finally we heard from George Springer. I mean, from
Yeah,
Springer.
you're right.
Springer
Yeah, George
struggled
Springer.
all. He's kind of struggled a little bit going into the World Series, and this might be a confidence booster for him, as he's headed on to uh, Minute Maid Ballpark.
Yeah, he was
But
three for
that's
five
just
with a double and basically the game-winning homer.
yeah. It was about time that his bat would get some juice and come around. Um, Bottom line is that the teams combined for series record 8 homers in a single game. Uh, it was just wild to see. It was like the Derby essentially. Um, Springer hit a drive that after Cameron Maybin got let off the 11th with a single, and of course he stole second, and driving folks deep into the count and getting a favor account. Um, Springer got a pitch to hit, and he drove it against Brandon McCarthy. Just a lot of just Dodgers were 3 outs away from being up 2-0. So mentally, that's got to be a little bit frustrating, knowing that you have 3 games in Minute Maid, and you got to win one. So um, I think that this is a pivotal game three. You got to get. This is going to be what. Um, so I think are Dodgers throwing out Darvish, and
I think so.
I think they're going to go Darvish and against who
Morton.
Verlander or Gordon.
I think it's
Okay,
Morton because
Morton,
Verlander
Morton.
pitched
That's right,
last night.
Morton. Verlander pitched last night, so yeah, so yeah, Morton. That's right. So this ought to be interesting. Um, Darvish has been pretty dominant. He throws a lot of fastballs to set up his super deadly slider. Um, I think the Houston bats, they're going to have to work Darvish deep into the count. That's the only way you can get him. Don't try to jump on first pitches. Um, I think patience pays off against him. So you just got to wear him down, and then maybe get some shots against the middle of that bullpen for the Astros. The Dodgers just have to. Dodgers are gonna get some pitches to hit against Morton. I see that. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to uh, string some, string some old school National League baseball. Get some runners on and try to get some hits behind the top of the order. So it's interesting to see.
Um, I would just tell everybody to kind of look out for this. If you have a low scoring game where you have like 5 runs total between both teams, the Dodgers will probably more than likely win those games. But if you get into a slugfest where you get like, 8 or more runs combined between the two teams, that definitely favors Houston because um, they have the speed, they have the power, and they just have a lot of hard guys to get out. Whereas, Puig is a free swinger. You can kind of get him chasing, and if you're a good pitcher and you can place your pitches, he won't be as much of a threat because he's not as patient at the plate. So there's a couple of easy outs in the Dodger lineup compared to the Astros lineup. So if the Dodgers can keep the games low scoring, that definitely benefits them because they clearly have the stronger bullpen. Even though it did not show in Game 2, that was definitely an aberration from the way the playoffs have been working. I think that tactically, Dave Roberts might have just went to his bullpen an inning too early. I mean, Rich Hill was cruising, it wasn't laboring. His pitch count was really low, so I mean, it wasn't a bad situation where it like where he was in trouble. He basically just pulled him out to the inning. So I think in hindsight, Dave Roberts probably would rather put Hill out there for that fifth inning, get him through that fifth inning, and then go, into the bullpen. One less inning for Jansen, because you don't want your closer overextended all the time. So, but so like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how the Houston series shifts once it gets to Houston. The ballpark there is made for offense, so should be a lot of fun down in
Speaking
Houston.
of
And
speaking of
okay.
offense, let's add a factor in. I think a dark horse factor in the series in Houston will be the DH. In comes for the Astros. You got Carlos Beltran, but for the Dodgers, you got you can pretty much you got some stuff to tinker with here. You got a little more pieces to choose from. You could go with Ethier, who's a pretty solid bat. You can go with let's see, it's about three or four. They've got about three or four options, but I think Ethier is the man that you go with in this kind of situation. Um, I think that whoever takes advantage of the DH position while in Houston is going to figure large at in these 3 games. But don't be surprised if Carlos Beltran has a big role if Houston takes 2 of 3. or Andre Ethier, because that gives you extra bat. That's about 15 to 25, either between 15 to 30 extra pitches that you really have to think about when facing the lineups, because you don't you because it's the DH. So
Right.
that's going to matter.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So yeah, definitely the strategy from the Dodgers part where where Houston had to kind of be kind of shorthanded playing in Dodger Stadium because they have to have their pitchers hit, and now they kind of gain that advantage back, and it'll be interesting to see who the Dodgers, like you're saying, who they kind of counter and put in their DH spot. But the games in Houston should definitely be interesting. The Astros fans are definitely going to be. Um, very excited, considering, the things that have happened in Houston with, Hurricane Harvey and everything. This team has really, lifted the spirits of the city, and everybody's all in on them. So it's going to be a great atmosphere when the series shift over to Houston. Just a reminder that this is Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente. I'm joined by my co host, Tyler Ball, and you can catch us on the CSPN network along with all our other great podcasts. So please check us out at www.cspn.us. So we're going to shift over to the NBA now, Tyler. The first week is in the books now. As last Tuesday was the start of the season, we've gone through the first weekend, and now we're getting into our second week, and we're starting to get some moves being made. Dwayne Wade, notably, has taken his talents to the bench, and J.R. Smith has now been reinserted into the Cavs starting lineup. They've shifted LeBron over to point guard the last few games, and an experiment there to try to put a little bit more athleticism into their backcourt with D Rose getting injured, hurting his ankle, and he's out. He's been probably for a week or two. Hopefully, nothing more than that. So, kind of, what are your thoughts on Dwayne Wade basically falling on the sword, going to Tyronn Lue, saying, "Hey, man, let me come off the bench." Jr. reclaiming his spot, and whatever tension might have been, between those two seems to have dissipated now that Wade is going to be the sixth man.
I think that this is a small piece of the puzzle with D Wade and uh, J.R. Smith, because quite honestly, uh, I know that Jr. was I didn't take Jr. being sent to the bench a big of a deal because he's been six man of the year. However, I think that this is more so LeBron uh, instigating this and just telling D Wade that the team is probably better off with him going to the bench, and D Wade just going public about it and doing it early kind of makes him it fits the D Wade class act image. So no shock here. Um, I think that LeBron sees that there's still some opportunity now. You better figure out what your best lineup is, because I think he's going to see some time at point guard as he's starting to play the last couple of games now. Um, they've got some kinks to. They definitely have some kinks to work out on the defensive end, um, as shown as they gave up a lot of points to two teams that you don't expect them to lose to, especially the Brooklyn Nets. So um, overall, it's just a small part of the puzzle. Just things that you do in the regular season to make adjustments. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Um, I just think that bottom line, Jr. is better for what they need right now, and D Wade can, of course, add a boost to that second unit.
Yeah, it looks like with J.R. Smith coming back into the starting lineup, that it increases their 3-point shooting, from their starting lineup, which was, only really designated 3-point shooter you had was Kevin Love, that you probably had, a lot of confidence in. When LeBron gets streaky, he's a good 3-point shooter, but, that's not your first thought when you see LeBron James, pull up from the three, is that, he's Mr. Automatic. So, adding J.R. Smith back into the starting lineup does definitely give them two legitimate shooters to help space the court. And if LeBron is going to, do this thing as a point guard, kind of give him more space to operate and drive and kick or just play bully ball and get to the rim. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to kind of see going forward how long LeBron plays at point guard. It seems like, he's regressing. Seems like he went to Cleveland with Kyrie so he wouldn't have to be the Mr. Do everything. And then he realized, oh, this dude's more of a scorer than a point guard, so I still got to do everything. And now that they don't have him and Derrick Rose is hurt, so now he's back into being, Mr. Do everything again. So just kind of that wear and tear is going to get to him. He's been indestructible, so far in his career, but he's not getting any younger, and he's played a lot of minutes, and you just wonder, when's he going to catch up to him. So, we'll see how he handles his new role as the point guard. It seems to be kind of be the new theme as Ben Simmons, 6'11", 235, is being, basically the point guard over in Philadelphia, along with Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is, nearly 7 feet tall himself and is, kind of playing the role of point guard in Milwaukee as well. Giannis is tearing the league up right now, averaging almost 35 points a game, over 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Has he officially moved into a top 5 player in the NBA, Tyler?
Not yet. Um, you got to give him the whole season. You got to be able. There are three things that you have to consider before you put Greek Freak in there. Uh, you have to, number one, consider the fact that he is rather limited as far as his overall court game in an all court game league. 92% of his field goals have come inside of 10 feet. I mean, that's great that he can't be stopped once he puts the ball on the floor and gets inside the paint. However, um, the main weakness of Milwaukee has been their lack of shooting against hard zone teams. Uh, I know they committed a lot of money to Tony Snell, who's supposed to be their designated shooter. Also, Chris Middleton got a nice contract. Those guys are gonna have to make shots because Giannis will not make them for you outside on the perimeter. And I think until he learns to make that shot, and I also include Ben Simmons in this too, until teams learn to to until they make teams respect their perimeter jumper, that middle is going to eventually get clogged up. And that's what Toronto did to them in the playoffs. And that is why you can't necessarily put uh Antetokounmpo in the top five just yet, because those top five players, they actually make their teams better and make their teams compete for championships. That's what distinguishes the top five guys from the next five, and the next five from the remaining other all NBA guys. So let's I know Giannis has publicly said he is chasing an MVP, and that's all well and good, but it means nothing if you are bounced out in the first or second round of the playoffs. So I'm just keeping it in perspective. Is he a top five talent? Highly likely. Is he the leader of the next generation of players? Yes. Put him in that same class with Anthony Davis, Karl-Anthony Towns. Put him in that class. Definitely. But those guys eventually have to lead teams to wins. Uh, and in the playoffs. That's what separates you from uh, being in that class.
Stars are made during the regular season. Superstars are made during the playoffs.
Exactly. And that's why I can't put him in my top five just yet.
All right. Out in Phoenix, we've got dysfunction. Earl Watson, 2 games into this season, he's out of there. Two just dreadful performances. They got beat by like 60 almost the opening night. Followed that up and got beat by like 35. And on Sunday, when this happened, there is a tweet from Eric Bledsoe that showed up on his account that said, "I don't want to be here." That basically led to the Phoenix Suns front office basically questioning Eric Bledsoe about, hey, what do you mean? Are you a malcontent? Are you you know disinterested in being here? And Eric Bledsoe came up with the worst lie ever. He said that he was with his girlfriend or wife at the hair salon, and he was tweeting about not wanting to be at the hair salon. The only thing about that was, again, this was on Sunday, and everybody knows that barbers and hairstylists, the one day they don't really do anything is on Sunday.
You better be a special client, and he might qualify. She or his wife might qualify for them to be open on Sunday. Typically, your for in the culture, shops close on Mondays. You know, they work on Sunday and Monday so they can be open for longer hours on Saturday. So
Right,
it's possible that they could it could have been a special appointment, but highly unlikely. Um,
right.
and you know this is a West Coast here, so yeah. While everybody's actually Bledsoe kind of comes out with sentiment in this because everybody knows Phoenix is horrible. Phoenix is hard.
Right.
Phoenix has been a horribly run organization. Uh, McDermott, the GM, has been terrible. He's made terrible decisions as far as drafting. We've heard nothing from their draft picks other than Devin Booker for their last 8 picks. Booker is probably the only one that has been a meaningful contributor to their team. Maybe Tyler Eulis, but other than that, absolutely nothing. And of course, you know, Josh Jackson may be a good one, but still, it's a terrible environment. They're the environment of kids, and Bledsoe is the elder statesman and doesn't want to be a part of that. So let him try to find a suitable trade where you can give Phoenix some veteran help to blend in with the kids, and you put Bledsoe on a contender. And I think both teams can at least be settled with that. Phoenix is going to be in they're going to be in the uh, dark ages for a while right now because just the leadership is just horrible. Um, I actually follow up with Phoenix Radio almost daily, and they're easily the poorest run franchise in in Arizona, and that's including the Coyotes. So it's just all bad out there.
Yeah, ever since the Colangelos took their talents east, Phoenix has really been on a downward slide. And that's really unfortunate because they had been one of the most consistent franchises over the last 20 years or so. Those great runs that they had with Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley. Then they got, Charles Barkley and they went to the finals in 93. And
Then
then,
they took a chance on Steve Nash, and
hmm
Nash carried them to to consistent appearances in the playoffs. Um, they were they were actually a franchise to be reckoned with. They had some success with Jason Kidd. So yeah, they've kind of fallen on hard times with this new ownership and new leadership, and it just takes time to get it right. And I think it starts with, to be honest with you, I think this is the last straw the for the GM McDermott, and he's got to go. I mean McDonough, and he's got to go.
um, where do you see maybe a good fit for Eric Bledsoe? If you just had to maybe, give us a couple of places that might benefit from him landing on their team.
The hottest rumor on the street right now, and I'm going to support this because it would be a great fit. He is a client of Rich Paul, who is LeBron's agent. Boom. that solves two problems. Bring him to Cleveland. You give Dwayne Wade a legitimate guy to boost the scoring with that second unit. Bledsoe can come off the bench in Cleveland. Problem solved. Nights where you want to give somebody off, he's instant offense. He's great in the Eastern Conference. Now, here's the other side. What do you give up? You sitting there with Jay Crowder. Crowder's a good piece to get. Crowder will be a good piece. However, he is your defensive guy. That's something to consider. Um, you've got J.R. Smith, who I don't know if he's going to be the influence that Phoenix would want with the kids out there. I don't know if he want to be a part of that building process. Um, that's going to be a bit difficult to pull off. Um, they may want a guy like a Tristan Thompson, but Cleveland needs its rebounding. So, maybe you have to pull up a deal with Alex Lynn or someone like that and bring some size back along with Bledsoe to Cleveland. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland's doing everything to get Bledsoe over. Also, if I wanted to put him on another team, what team needs a little bit more scoring and has the pieces to give up? Hmm. How about the Toronto Raptors? Or better yet, the Milwaukee Bucks that we just mentioned. Could be.
Yeah, so that'll be a very interesting development. That could definitely, especially if he comes to the East, that could definitely, influence greatly a team's chances of, making the playoffs or advancing, just because of how weak the East is right now. And a player with Bledsoe's scoring ability, like you said, he can be good, just perfect coming off the bench or, be your late game kind of finisher, to go with your starters and just be that, one guy to come in and be your closer type. So it'd be very interesting to see where Eric Bledsoe, if he gets shipped out or, eventually when he does get shipped out, where he goes to. So Tyler,
He would make Charlotte a playoff contender right now.
right. And they need the shooting because Batum is going to be out for the whole season and he was their designated 3-point shooter. So Um, anything else that caught your eye this first week? LeVar Ball's been talking, and so he's had a press conference after every game, and everybody's like, why are we talking to the dad and not the kid?" But the kid doesn't have the personality the dad does, so if you're in the media, you'll run to the dad.
All right, I do want to say a couple of things about that, um, but not necessarily on LeVar. I want to give a shout out to Luke Walton for standing up for his team and recognizing the fact that LeVar's antics may have galvanized the team, even though he did say that it should not come down to the father talking and the guys having to rally behind this kid because this kid's dad's talking to the media. Luke knows what's going on, and Luke knows that he's got a bunch of kids on that team. To laud them publicly for rallying behind a guy who's supposed to be a franchise leader, that is going to actually um, make them better as far as being together as far as a team. I don't know if anybody is there that's mature enough or has the gumption to be a leader. So anytime Luke praises his team, and I think it's going to be important after every win that he puts together that he emphasizes that this is a team effort until they get some sort of big name free agent to come there, or until Lonzo decides that he's going to be the guy, maybe the vocal. He decides to be the vocal guy in the locker room. But on the court, that team is better when he's on it because he doesn't rush things. He wants to play fast, but he's not playing out of control right now. And eventually his shot's going to come together. I mean, right now he's in the low 30s, but however, um, he's making the right passes. He's making the right decisions with the ball. So they're going to continue to improve because there is some talent there. And for them to beat the Wizards, that that's more of a statement of the Lakers more than it is a bad statement for the Wizards. So that's a positive. Other things that have caught my eye would be the play of LaMarcus Aldridge. Um, he opened first two games. He gave you 25 and 10 after solving his inner issues with uh, with the Spurs offense. He is now a focal point with Kawhi out. Spurs are 4-0, and they've done it impressively. Um, I think that Aldridge is going to have to figure out how to remain aggressive when Kawhi returns, but that's been pretty good. Also, Houston Rockets starting out 3-0, and here is your issue: the Rockets are almost 15 points better on the floor without Chris Paul. D'Antoni has already said that Paul is slowing them down. That's not good. They've gone back to being old Houston now that he's out with a knee bruise, and Houston's just making shots right now. But you made your investment in Chris Paul. Paul's supposed to be your defensive guy. He's supposed to get them together on the defensive end. And without him being out there, you know, what are you going to do? So I'd be cautiously optimistic with the Rockets. Um, another thing that's caught me is Memphis. Memphis still being in grindhouse mode, starting out 3-0, including another win over the Warriors. Uh, they have been the only team to beat the Warriors twice since the start of 2016, and they do it the rough and tough way. You got a grinding point guard in Conley. You got Gasol, who gives big guys problems because he can jump out and defend, and he's mobile, and of course he can hit the perimeter shot on offense. Houston's unique. I mean, Memphis is unique, and of course they get in you defensively. Uh, you know, I like the coach, man. He's a pretty good guy. So uh, that's a good sign for them to get out to this early start. But obviously, can they maintain it?
Right. Um, Another thing that's a big story that broke this week is Markel Fultz. He seems to have something going on with his shoulder, which the team put out was caused by the change of his shot. A lot of people kind of had problems with his shooting form coming out of college, and it seems like he tried to work on it during the offseason, and somehow his shoulder has come up as being an issue now. So a little mysterious. It's like what was he shooting, a medicine ball to hurt your shoulder by trying to change your shot and get a little bit better form on his jumper. What do you think about this Fultz injury, and is it really a big deal? Because it seems like I think it's Covington is there. He's playing very well. Like I said, they got Ben at point guard now. Simmons running the show at point guard, and Embiid when he is on the court is a problem.
Um, Sit him right now. Sit him, and it's bad enough when you have to hear the word drained. You got fluid development in your shoulder. How? How do you have to have your shoulder drained? That's not good. It's weird. However, um, you got Robert Covington. Shout out to HBCU product. Shout out to Tennessee State University. Uh, Covington is your rangy shooter that gives him more minutes. That gives Jarrett Bayless more minutes, who's a proven commodity. He's been on a playoff team, And of course, as long as Simmons finds them in the half court, they're going to be all right. Uh, I don't think sitting sitting Markel hurts you. I think this just gives the guys more minutes, and if those guys are going to play well, then I think it's all well and good. This it's an embarrassment of riches right now, thanks to the process.
Speaking of which, and this will be our last topic on the NBA, is there a place in the NBA for Jahlil Okafor? Has the game, the way that we play basketball now in the NBA, has it just passed him by because he's such a traditional low post player who doesn't really play good low post defense on the other side?
Well, I mean, he could go somewhere like a Phoenix, or he could go somewhere like Detroit. Some guys who had he needs to go to a team that has another interior presence. Um, I think you can still benefit by having an offensive big man. He could be on a playoff team, I guess, and get some spot minutes when you got some fouls to give. Actually, I think he'd be great in Washington because Washington desperately needs some scoring from a second unit big man because Mahimi can only take up space and maybe block shots. Uh, I'd actually love to see him in DC. But to answer your question, um, I don't think it's passed them by totally, but it's almost there. Um, fortunately, you still do have to score, particularly in the league of stretch fours and stretch fives. So there may be room for him on a team that just needs some scoring from inside. But he's got to be part of a twin tower type system.
All right. This episode of Know the Score is being brought to you by Audible.com. Over at Audible.com, they are offering a free audio download and a free 30-day trial. All you have to do is go to www.audibletrial.com/know the score and pick out your title. You can get Jim Ross's new book, Slaughter and Knocker, My Life in Professional Wrestling. Get, sports documentary. John Carlos just released a great biography last year. Cooking books, recipe books, anything, that your heart desires, fiction, nonfiction. And it will be free through Know the Score and Audible.com. So again, that's www.audibletrial.com/know the score and go search through the 150,000 titles that are available on audible.com. Lastly, we'll get into the NFL. Last week, Tyler, your guys went out to the Bay and did what you needed to do against a bad team. You jumped on them fast and you kept jumping on them to the tune of 40-7. You got to see, a few backups get into the game late. Alfred Morris got a few more carries than he's gotten so far during the season. Switzer got into the game for a couple of carries and catches. Just your overall, thoughts of Dallas coming off their bye week and looking really sharp.
That's good news. All things considered, um, I would love because no game is quote unquote easy. So it was nice to see uh Dak hit passes through windows. It was great to see um the guys take advantage of some mismatches they had with the Niners secondary and with their linebackers with Ezekiel hitting holes hard. To be honest with you, I would I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys use Ezekiel like DeMarco Murray and give him 25 to 30 carries now because they don't know when he will be back. Uh, I think that it was a good time. It was a good time to see the defensive line be dominant and get some three and outs. Because I'm not going to see much of that for a lot of the season. I just want that talent to develop. as far as the defense goes, and that was and we got a chance to see that, so that was a good sign. Um, I'm gonna get into the preview a little bit later, but I'm going to extend the conversation into the NFL before we go into the team previews. It was an ugly week in the league. Um, you had 10 teams that scored a touchdown or less. Seven of those teams did not score an offensive touchdown. You can include the Chicago. I watched the Bears and Panther game. There was one major offensive play of the entire game. It's a 70-yard pass from Mitchell Trubisky to uh, rookie Tariq Cohen from North Carolina A&T, of course. Uh, he actually was isolated in the slot, caught a 70-yard bomb that led to a field goal, and that was the only offensive score of the game. Bears beat Carolina 17-3. Rookie corner Eddie Jackson scored twice on a fumble return and a interception return, as Cam Newton was awful. The Titans beat the Browns 12-9. Three teams had shutouts. The Rams, Jaguars, um, and somebody else pulled off a shutout. Oh, and the LA Chargers defenses both pulled out shutouts. So this again contributes to the relatively mediocre quarterback play in the league. And you pretty much have to get lucky to watch a good game right now.
Yeah, even the Sunday night game turned out to be a snoozer as Atlanta just failed to convert once they got down the red zone. They went for it a couple of times and had a turnover. The three times they were really, there to score, and the Patriots ended up, handling them pretty soundly. So yeah, like you said, it wasn't really a good week for competitiveness and good play and sound play. A lot of ugliness going on for us to be almost 2 months into the season. But like you said, with the quarterbacks being so just up and down from week to week, you don't know what you're going to get. And that's why they always say the NFL is a week to week league. Just you can look awful this week and then turn around next week and looks like you're on track, and then it doesn't look like anybody's stringing together victories except for the Philadelphia Eagles, who took care of my Washington football team on Monday night. um, just really a game of missed opportunities. Washington started out fast, had a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. They were getting to Carson Wentz, playing good man-to-man defense, bringing the pressure. They got a couple of sacks on him in that first quarter. But like I told you in the preview last week, it was all about could the Washington football team stay on the field. And in the first half, they could not convert three third and shorts, two third and ones, and a third and two, which basically sabotaged their drives. And Philly got a field goal. Then they kind of they changed. They went to the up tempo offense, which made Washington have to get out of their man-to-man coverage, stop sending their blitz because you couldn't get fresh people on and off the field. And like you said, Tyler, Mac Hollins ran an out and up on DJ Swearinger for about a 74-yard beautiful bomb by Carson Wentz, and then from then on they scored 21 straight points. Some bad clock management by Jay Gruden gave him the ball, over 2 minutes
Awful.
In the second quarter, and DJ Swearinger with the worst missed tackle I've ever seen. Uh, like I said, three possessions in a row, they just go down the field, 21 straight points. Then Washington gets the ball with about 30 seconds left, and they just take a knee, kick the ball back to the Eagles to start the second half. They go down and get a field goal. So, I mean, you're down 14 points, hadn't touched the ball in an hour. And it's just a game of catch up. And then Kirk Cousins did, lead him back down, get him within a touchdown. Looks like they were going to get off the field on the 3rd and 8, and Carson Wentz just ducks down and comes out of the pile of bodies and scrambles for 17 yards. And basically, that was a death blow. The Redskins could never really get any closer than 10 points after that. Um, just a very frustrating game because again, take the first drive, go down the field, get in the red zone, kick a field goal, and my edict has always been red zone field goals will get you beat. And too often, as we can kind of shift into the best game of this week, which is the Redskins and Cowboys, that's been the rap with Kirk Cousins. It's just from 20 to 20, he's really good. But once you get him inside the red zone, he doesn't force throws into tight windows, which leads to low interception numbers. But you don't get touchdowns that way. And another thing that I have a problem with as far as Jay Gruden's coaching is, and I've had a problem with this with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan before him, is they don't throw the ball into the end zone. How can you score touchdowns if you can't? They can't run. Okay, so that's gonna be out. How are you ever gonna score if you never throw the ball into the end zone? Yeah, Kirk Cousins has 12 touchdowns, and I think only two of them have actually been caught with the receiver in the end zone. So that's kind of the next step for me that Kirk Cousins needs to take. He needs to take it fast because this stretch coming up, starting with Dallas, and Tyler, we can get into that now on Sunday is going to be the Redskins season probably because they have Dallas followed by taking a trip out to Seattle. Then they have to go to Minnesota. So, they got to at least win one of these games coming up, and Dallas at home is their best one. So, talk about what you see from your end as, Cowboy fan. Kind of, actually strength on strength as the Redskins passing game is the strength of their offense, and y'all's defensive line is the strength of y'all's defense. And then, coming back the other way, um, it's gonna have to be a game where if we can stack up Zeke like we did in the first game last year, we gotta make sure we cover Cole Beasley and Witten in the slot because they just killed us last year at the game at FedEx Field. So, Todd, give me your thoughts on what you see between the rivalry game, Cowboys Redskins.
Uh, it actually, you've kind of covered it halfway. Kirk Cousins hits tight windows now. Kirk Cousins is not hitting tight windows now. Dak Prescott is, and that is the difference between uh, where Kirk Cousins is ranked and where Dak is. Dak is considered to be a top a top five quarterback right now, uh, with all the injuries to other quarterbacks, particularly Aaron Rodgers. And that's because Dak is taking that step forward where he's actually throwing the ball down the field into coverage and putting it where only his guys can come up with the plays. And that's been critical. Um, they have to get better at third down. Uh, Dallas also needs to maybe consider using Zeke more in they need to get him more on the perimeter. I mean, I know they like establishing the line of scrimmage, getting him in between the tackles, but I would take advantage of the Redskins secondary and taking advantage of Dallas's speed and getting Zeke on the outside and putting those wide receivers blocking to use because they are pretty good blockers. So I would create those one-on-one matchups, and Zeke can make the guy miss and turn those 2 and 3 yard runs into 7, 8, 9, 10+ yard runs. And that of course sets up the play action and get the push the ball down the field and take some shots. Take some shots. You got Bryce Butler. You got of course Dez Bryant. Dez can attract some double coverage, of course, but you got Bryce Butler. You got Terrence Williams. You got some guys who can stretch the field. Maybe not necessarily a Cole Beasley who makes his living across the middle, but you got you saw where as you mentioned earlier, Mac Hollins got a out and up move. Bryce Butler's known for doing that. I mean, he can definitely get some separation, and if Dak hits him with the throw, it's going to be a big play. So, bottom line is, whoever succeeds in the red zone and which defensive line is dominant up front, because Kerrigan has played pretty well against the Cowboys. He just needs to get some help. Uh, and I think that on defense, Dallas is actually nursing itself, getting guys back from injury. Sean Lee is once again back. He's been notoriously good against the Redskins when he's played. Uh, Redskins, Washington's been very fortunate the last few times where they've not had to face Sean Lee. Um, Lee will be back. They're getting developing guys in Jordan Lewis. But if I were Washington, I would take my chances against the Dallas secondary. Uh, you know, they only have they don't force a lot of turnovers. They don't make a lot of plays as far as interceptions. I think that they believe in uh, you know making cover, getting, being there in coverage and making the tackle versus taking chances and trying to force the turnovers or force the action, particularly in the passing game. So there are going to be some opportunities for Kirk Cousins, um, particularly in the middle of the field. I would isolate Lee versus the tight end and see if you can win a few of those battles. Uh, I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, but I'm going to go Cowboys 34, Washington 28.
In theory, Tyler, what you're saying is very good as far as what you're talking about. The Redskins may be able to take advantage of, but they currently have two problems. Their three best offensive linemen are all nicked up. They're gonna play, but they're not gonna be at their absolute best. Trent Williams has his kneecap is basically like not secure, so he's gutting it out. He needs surgery. Brandon Sheriff, who is probably the best right guard in the NFL, he got cheap shotted from behind, so it kind of gave him a little back injury. But then he got his knee rolled up on, and he got a grade 2 MCL sprain. But they're going to try to brace it up, and he's going to try to tough it out. And then Morgan Moses in the game on Monday night sprained both his ankles. So, he's not going to be at his full mobility. And that's definitely going to hamper one of the staples of this season so far for the Washington passing game, which has been, screens to Chris Thompson. Um, the screens to Chris Thompson have worked because the other problem is the outside receivers for the Washington football team just aren't good. Terrell Pryor is not what anybody thought he was going to be coming out of training camp. But, when you see those videos at a training camp, those things are, doctored up for the receivers and the offensive players to look good. It's not really training camp's not set up for the defense to really shine. So you get all hyped about these videos and you're thinking, oh man, we got something here. And then I saw in the very first preseason game, like, oh, this guy tries to catch his ball against his body and he doesn't like to get hit. This isn't going to work out. And so far it hasn't. Doxson is basically a rookie as he missed all last season. And on Monday night, they kind of ramped up his snaps. He basically started in place of Pryor. And, he had a couple of, few catches here for about 40 yards, but nothing very impactful. Jay Gruden has got to start kind of looking at his team and going, who are my best guys and who do I trust and who can I play? Because Terrell Pryor is almost getting to the point where he needs to be inactive. Um, the Washington running game is non-existent because we have great pass catching tight ends who can't block, but we insistently see them on the line blocking. So to me, you can talk about all your strategies and you can talk about Kirk Cousins and more red zone touchdowns. This game is a Jay Gruden football game. Jay Gruden and the coaching staff, coordinators of the Washington football team have to win this game for their players because they're beat up, they're banged up, they're not at 100%. Thankfully, we're going to get Josh Norman back to kind of, set our pieces back up in the secondary so we don't have to use our depth as starters and they can come in and rotate and be fresh. To always have a fresh body on Beasley. and maybe use a cover corner on Witten, or one of our backup safeties on Witten. So this is a game where I'm placing it squarely on the shoulders of Jay Gruden. He's gonna have to stop having Jordan Reed block, let him start being our slot player, and they need to start taking more advantage of matchups. As a guy who grew up watching Joe Gibbs, who's first experience, his first 12 years of watching football is was watching Joe Gibbs call plays and be really simple, but be really good at what they did and take advantage of mismatches. It just seems that Jay Gruden schemes up his 80 plays and he just goes down the list. He doesn't seem to set up plays or go back to different plays, or an example is Philadelphia has really good rushing defense. Come out first play, we get 6 yards rushing with with our running back. That's pretty good for us. But instead of, maybe running the same play again or running it to the opposite direction, they bring in a whole new package, and it's just like play one, play two, play three, play four, and it's never any kind of continuity or setting up of anything. So I think that kind of needs to kind of change from Jay Gruden's perspective. Be more of about, hey, you know what? Philadelphia lost their one of their cover linebackers 2 plays into the game, and they don't have anybody who can cover Vernon Davis. So Vernon Davis should have had 12 catches in that game. He only had 4, and they all came in the first half. So that's a strictly coaching thing, and I think that that's kind of where we are in the Redskins season. Is from whatever they get these next 3 games, it's going to have to come from Jay Gruden and his coaching staff really identifying where their advantages are, and just going to them over and over and over again. They don't seem to do that. Other teams, they force feed their guys when they find out, so, oh, you can't stop Zach Ertz, he gets 9 catches. Oh, you can't stop the deep ball. Oh, they bomb him down the field. And the Washington football team just doesn't do that. Like I said, he just makes his game plan up, and he's like, I got to get all my plays in. And it shows when they play against really good football teams, and they're playing a really good football team on Sunday. So um, hopefully they can. Washington can, like I said, kind of the loss of Jonathan Allen is really going to hurt because he did 2 things. He was really good against the run, and he is our best interior pass rusher, and he was helping making the quarterback step up, or not able to step up, so Kerrigan and Preston Smith can get around the edge, give them that extra second they haven't had in the past couple of years to kind of get around the edge and get quarterbacks on the ground. That being said, mobile quarterbacks have killed us. Carson Wentz twice, Alex Smith. So for Preston Smith and Ryan Kerrigan, they're going to have to be really disciplined. Don't let Dak, spin out, get to the outside where he can, run or throw. And if they can just get around him, got to get him on the ground. And so, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Just, we get around Dak Prescott, how many times do we let him off the hook and he escapes? If that is 0 to 1 or 2, I feel pretty good about the chances. If it seems like every time they get around him, he can step up and get out of the way, it's gonna be a long game because the Washington team is susceptible to giving up big plays, and they give up a lot of third downs and a lot of third and longs. So it's just a bugaboo of right now kind of what this team is. I think they're a good team, but I think they're a team that needs their coaching staff to kind of step up and put them over the top right now, because the injuries have kind of taken away. They're not functioning at their optimum with all their players healthy and pretty. It's 8 games in, nobody's 100%, but our guys are probably around 75, 70% for some of these key players, especially the offensive line. So it's a rivalry game. This is, the game doesn't look like it might not be that competitive, quote unquote, but this will be the game that Redskins play with a lot of heart and maybe find a way to sneak it out. I'm going to go 30-27 as a score, and hopefully it's the Washington team on the right side and not Dallas. But you know what, Tyler? We did not talk about concerning both teams. They have new field goal kickers. Dan Bailey hurt a growing muscle out in San Francisco, and he's going to be out. And Redskin kicker Deskin Hopkins basically has a torn labrum in his hip, and so he's maybe out for the season. And so, if the game comes down to place kicking, um, it may be a battle of, who can get it through the uprights. Dan Bailey has been such a weapon, Mr. Automatic, extra points, field goals, no matter what distance. The only kicker who may be better than him is Justin Tucker up in Baltimore. So, are you concerned about if it comes down to the end of the game, field goal, or, you guys get stalled out in the middle of the field? How confident are you in your field goal kicking?
To be honest, if it means that it changes the play calling for us to get more aggressive, I'm fine with that. But I'm confident in Mike Nugent. I mean, he's won games before. Uh, Nugent's got some distance. He's been kicking for 13 years, and he's going to be. He's got a pretty solid percentage. He's made. Actually, last year he made. He did, however, miss miss 6 extra points, which was uh, which was the most missed in the season. Um, he's going to come in cold, so I think that uh, I think that he's going to be. I think that he'll be okay. It's just a matter of making that first kick. Once we make that first kick and the get into the rhythm, especially with our long snapper, LP Ladasur, and of course our punter, who's the holder, Chris Jones. You want them to stay fresh and not necessarily overkick and overthink it. But as long as they get that rhythm down, that's going to be fine. Um, but however, if they're going to be if they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and throw the ball downfield to try to get touchdowns instead of, being comfortable with having a guy like Bailey there to kick a field goal, I am all for it.
All right. So, renewal of the rivalry, probably the greatest in football, one of the greatest in sports, Cowboys and Redskins. Now let's move on to Pittsburgh, where it seems like, the drama continues. We had Antonio Brown. First couple of weeks, he was upset he wasn't getting enough passes. He was, mad at Ben throwing water coolers around. You had Ben have a very subpar game and then come out in the media and say, maybe he doesn't have it. And then, of course, there's, questions. What does that mean? Has he lost a step? Is he, thinking of, since he's thought about retirement, is his heart and mind not in to playing football anymore? And now this week, Martavius Bryant has let it be known that he's not happy with his current role, as he's seen his touches and effectiveness in the offense go to Juju Smith-Schuster at USC. He's come in and basically been the darling of the city so far this year. And now Martavis Bryant, who is basically playing for a contract, is like, hey, this isn't helping my cause. I need to be somewhere where I can shine and flourish. And the Steelers, or who they thought they were, Mike Tomlin came out and said, he ain't going nowhere. I'm going to deal with it the way that I deal with it. But all these other teams out here who may be thinking they can give us a call about Martavius Bryant, nope, he's staying with us. We've invested in him. We've been through the ups and downs with him, and we're going to continue to do that. And then 2 days later, they put him on the scout team, and he's inactive for the game on Sunday. So, Tyler, I think that if Martavis Bryant was 2 years removed from being suspended, passed his drug test, on his way to being clean for a second year or a third year, possibly, I think the Steelers would have had a lot of people calling and they couldn't have played such a hard stance. But I think that a lot of teams are just afraid that you won't be able to count on him, one. And two, if he's this upset on a team with this many weapons and a team that throws the ball all over the place and it's got Antonio Brown on the other side, always making sure you get single coverage. If he's unhappy there is no way in the world he's going to come to a mediocre to bad team and
My,
not
my,
kill your
my,
locker room. So it's very interesting dynamic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It just seems like they've got something popping up every week, and they're playing really well too. So, you know, try to, like everybody says in football, try to limit their distractions, as it looks like they may be at least, if not the front runner, right behind Kansas City as truly the best team in the AFC. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this plays out. If Bryant, came back yesterday and basically said, "Hey, you know what? I said what I said. They know how I feel, but from here on out, I'm gonna just, keep my mouth shut, keep my head down, show up, do my work, and whatever happens, happens." So, Tyler, kind of, what are your thoughts about Martavis Bryant and the way Mike Tomlin has handled the situation?
I'm actually over Martavis Bryant. I'm over the entire situation. I think it's ridiculous. You know, first of all, your team is winning. Second of all, I know this. I know you're about your bread, but you're kind of almost impossible to trade. You have almost no value considering that you are on. You essentially have two strikes in a three-strike program. You've already been suspended for a year. So, bottom line, I think this is about as open and shut as you do. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh put his name out there and got so little to little as far as offering that they decided to shelve him and not even have him out there publicly on the trade market because there's essentially no value. I mean, there's no real need. I mean, heck, nobody like who wants the kid, you know. He's better off being quiet, playing, and being a free agent next season. Um, so bottom line is their team is just trying to weather this storm, this little small distraction. They are at they're about the business of winning football games because quite honestly, the AFC is uh, they see they see blood in the water as far as the Patriots are concerned. They've actually beaten Kansas City, who was almost anointed as the best team in the AFC. I mean, there is a Super Bowl winning opportunity here, and quite honestly, uh, Bryant can, he needs to relax.
Right, right. Another little riff in the news for Cam Newton, as yesterday he was at his weekly press conference. And guess he was a little bit annoyed, as of course, he had such a bad game on Sunday against the Bears, as Tyler already highlighted. And they were asking him questions about, what they can do for the offense and why the offense has been so, lethargic for most of the season. And looks like he just kind of got fed up with the questioning, rolled his eyes, asked if there were any more questions, paused for about 10 seconds, and then walked off. So, just more ammunition for the Charlotte media and the people who love to throw arrows at Cam Newton to, say, hey, this guy's not mature. He's a front runner. When everything's great and we're winning, yeah, that smile is bright and, he's magnetic and he's everything that you want. But when things go south, he pouts and he's withdrawn and he's sullen and he's short with people. Just Cam's 27, 28 years old. Is the maturity ever going to come to him? Is he ever going to, realize that he's got to be professional at all times, even, fake it till you make it type
Well,
of deal?
I think that this Newton situation, I think that he's dealing with a lot of pressure internally. I also think that it's external as well, especially after what happened 2 weeks ago with Jordan Rodrigue after his comment. Um, I think that there's still some backlash from that. They right now he can't get the ball down the field, and that was his strength. But then again, he doesn't have a true deep threat. The team did not bring back Ted Ginn. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the lack of a guy like a Ted Ginn, even with all of his drops, he was a threat. And of course, they're missing his old reliable target in Greg Olson. And I think that is just it's just quite disappointing. He's already admitted to being a quote unquote sore loser. He even said that after the Super Bowl. But I think he's just really tired of the frustration where he just hasn't. He just has been, and the NFL's a week to week league, and bottom line is he's been up and down, and right now is just a down period, and the only way uh, he can take care of that is to get back on the field on Sunday. And sometimes you don't want to deal with the noise, including the media. So, you know, all right, dude's moody, dude's frustrated. Yes, you got to be a professional, and that's what you're paid to do. But then again, we've let Marshawn Lynch get carte blanche, and we love Marshawn Lynch, and he said nothing to the media in the last 4 years. So, you know, I think that Cam being mercurial and being emotional, he's not a robot. Um, I think that it's just times where he's just frustrated, and I can see that. But at the same time, if you're going to go up there and have your press conference, you have to actually do the job, and that is answer questions. And I think he just that's his way of dealing with it, and just wanting to be left alone, and just want to make it right on Sunday. And that's what the more outbursts that he has, or the more incidents he has of this, the more pressure he puts on himself to perform on Sundays. And that's about as bottom line as it can get.
Okay. We had two more major injuries to quarterbacks as we had Jake Cutler break some ribs. He had to leave the game. Matt Moore, I know you're familiar with him, Tyler, came in. They scored 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins got a win. Jay Cutler is going to try to tough it out tonight, which is Thursday against the Ravens. He's going to be in there with a whole bunch of extra rib padding, of course. And we might have seen the end of Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer broke his arm against the Rams over in London last week. The Cardinals have been kind of slow out of the blocks this year. Of course, they lost David Johnson for the season, first game. They seemed to have a little, resurgence last week. Adrian Peterson joined the team first week out, has a big game, but they came back down to reality against maybe the second best team in the league right now, or, at least the fourth or fifth best team in the St. Louis, or excuse me, Los Angeles Rams now. So, do you think we've seen the last of Carson Palmer and, the one of the last of the traditional seven-step drop, you know, pocket passers?
Yeah, I think that's it. The media has essentially Christian the fact that it's pretty much it for Carson. This is a major injury. Um, I just think that it's time. And I think his body has worn down on him, and I think the Cardinals' window of opportunity closed last year. So I think he's actually a year beyond what they had, and with David Johnson going down, I think that was the sign that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform, and with no other receiving threat other than Fitzgerald, and no threat to stretch the field, then they were going to be in behind the eight ball anyway. Um, you know, Adrian Peterson was a last ditch effort. Um, so yeah, I think we may have seen the last of him, and I think the Cardinals need to consider whether or not they need to, um, play for the draft, and already start thinking about the future, or um, whether or not to go for Sam Darnold if he comes out, or Josh Rosen if he comes out. Um, this it's some decision time for that entire staff, and I just think that Drew Stanton is going to be the guy. He's been in some situations before. He's won them a few games, but there's no real confidence in him right now. So I think it's time to make that move towards the future.
Do you think that with Carson more than likely not coming back, that's going to be what tips Fitzgerald over the edge, and then
Oh
he's
yeah,
going to walk away as well?
oh yeah, he's done. He's out of there. He's essentially treating this and speaking with the local media. He's treating this like he's on a retirement tour. So I think he will make it official once the season ends that he will be done unless he's given some ridiculous offer to join a Super Bowl team, like the Patriots or the Cowboys or even the Steelers, his hometown. Uh, I can't see him coming back.
Okay. You've been listening to Know the Score. I've been the host, Don Delarente. I've been here with my co-host, Tyler Ball. Now, Tyler, we're about to open it up for your final thoughts and comments. Anything that you'd like to touch on that we didn't get a chance to during our conversation?
I just want to say the Heisman voting. You can pretty much give the award to Saquon Barkley. It's his to lose. We were at this point last season where Lamar Jackson has pretty much sewn up the award. Barkley has been the best player in the country, and I think he solidified his performance, scoring 3 touchdowns and accounting for almost 230 yards against Michigan. Um, he's going to be he's got a shot for being the all-time leading rusher in Penn State history. Penn State has put out several great running backs. Even though they're known for their linebackers, they have had some outstanding running backs that have gone pro. I would not be surprised if Barkley is listed as the greatest Penn State running back ever because of what he can do with the football. He's extremely dynamic, and he will be an exciting guy to watch in the pros next season. Uh, However, there is another uh, two other powerhouse programs that are intersecting. That would be the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame and the University of Miami. They are on a collision course for a November 11th showdown with a potential playoff spot going to the winner. And all of a sudden, uh, you've got two traditional rivals um, that really haven't been relevant on the national scene in about nearly 2 decades, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 seasons from Notre Dame. Um, they're going to clash in an all important matchup, and I'm super excited. The nostalgia factor in me kind of has me looking forward to how these schools are going to match up with something real on the line related to the national championship. So, provided they hold serve these 2 weeks, November 11th will be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it might be Catholics versus convicts, the modern day version, huh? Even
Yep.
though Miami's not that school anymore that they used to be, but just the nostalgia of it is going to be pretty fun to see those two iconic teams back on the same field playing each other. It's been so long since they've had a high stakes meaningful game since the early 90s, late 80s. um I can remember that was that 1992 when Miami went up there and got them. I know they had that epic battle in 88. That was just fantastic. So yeah, they've had some of the most spectacular games in recent college football memory between Miami and Notre Dame. So yeah, it'll be fun if they can continue to stay on the track that it looks like they're headed on. My final thought will be a congratulations to none other than Daryl Bubba Wallace, as he has finally secured a ride, a full-time ride in the highest series of NASCAR. He will be driving the iconic 43 of Richard Petty Motorsports. Um, he will become the first full-time African American driver on the circuit since Wendell Scott in 1971. This is a huge step for NASCAR. the kid has a ton of personality. He can drive the wheels off the car. He's going to be in a little bit of substandard equipment compared to, the bigger dogs out there, Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, Penske Racing. Um, but nonetheless, he's got a chance to show off his talent, and showcase, to America just who he is, and, um, bring some color to NASCAR besides the checkered flag. I've been touting Bubba Wallace for 3 years. He's a standout in the Truck Series, which is kind of like the single A of NASCAR. Uh, he moved up to the Xfinity Series, which is kind of like more like their AAA. So I guess the trucks would be like double A. And was doing really good this year, and just ran out of sponsorship. He was fifth in the points. He was probably going to be in their playoffs, but around midway through the season, he ran out of sponsorship and then basically lost his ride. Um, there's big outcry on social media for somebody give him a chance. Somebody found some money somewhere, give him a chance. Um, he got a few races in the top series of NASCAR when the 43 driver broke his back at Kansas and had to miss about 6 weeks. Bubba got 4 races to race and show what he can do. Proved, that he could definitely hold his own uh, at the top series. And then he got a chance to drive a truck again at Michigan after sitting out for about 6 weeks. He gets out there and wins that truck race, and I think that was kind of the final bell that he needed to ring to kind of get people to notice that, yeah, this kid can definitely needs to be in this top series. Um, there's Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, and Bubba Wallace were all kind of like the Rat Pack of trucks. They all kind of came in within 1 or 2 years of each other, and they all kind of moved up through the ranks together. The other four guys that I mentioned have been in the Cup Series. I know Kyle Larson's been there for 4 years now. This is Chase Elliott's second year, Blaney's second year, Suarez's rookie year, and now Bubba gets to join them next year. And that's the future of the sport. Dale Jr. is retiring this year. A lot of people are disappointed. A lot of viewership may turn away from the sport because he's been the most popular driver, and there's so many people who were Dale Earnhardt fans, and then when he unfortunately got killed, they transferred their allegiance right over to Dale Jr. And for the past 20 years, he's kind of been the guy. But now that he's leaving, Jeff Gordon's left, Tony Stewart's left, Matt Kenseth. This may be kind of his last season as he doesn't have a ride or sponsorship. Carl Edwards has left the sport, and it's really a time of change, and a new era is being ushered in. And I'm glad to see that Bubba Wallace is going to get a chance to be one of those guys. So good luck to him, and whoever's going to sponsor the 43 car, they're going to get a whole lot of airtime coming up in February at Daytona, because he's going to be one of the biggest stories leading into the new NASCAR season. So just another congratulations to Bubba Wallace. And so yeah, so now we have a black driver in NASCAR, and hopefully he can do what Tiger Woods did for golf for NASCAR, and bring a whole nother set of eyes and whole nother set of fans, and reason to get excited. So congratulations to Bubba, and I can't wait to see what he does next year.
NASCAR needs that, especially after their statements dealing with you know dealing with the social justice, their response uh, to drivers and their position on the American flag, and how that did not go well. It didn't go over with the alumni of NASCAR's diversity program. Guys have spoken out, such as a well-known celebrity who went through that program, Terrence Jenkins. He spoke out against NASCAR's stance. So this is a shot in the arm as far as diversity, uh, and also for uh, they've got one of the first African American crew chiefs that's also in, and that's pretty big too. So it's not dying off, and of course now you have a driver in the main series that's going to be big, and I just hope that there's just going to be some more opportunities, and you could get the key is to get sponsorships, and as long as you have the sponsorships, you're going to have the drivers. So as we look forward to closing out, I just want to say, you have been listening to Know the Score here on the CSPN. Don't forget to check out our shows. Um, we have several brand new podcasts, so we're kind of in transition, especially under the leadership of Classic Materia and my co-host Don Delarente. And for everyone here, including our hosts that are in their absence, Vassal Jesse and Nebias Wilborn. You can find him on Twitter at nwilborn19. I am Tyler Ball, and now you know the score.